welcome back to the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. There is a UFC BJJ event, the second under that banner. And it's going to be the first event where my co-host Calum, I'm Ross, gives his thoughts on this new UFC BJJ venture because he was away traveling for 10 weeks all through the reality show that led up to the first show and then the UFC BJJ 1 event. And I was doing solo pods along the way, so I have had some thoughts put out into the world on the matter. But I am really interested because we haven't really chatted before doing this episode as to what Calum thinks about this whole UFC BJJ thing. So let's get Calum's thoughts on that, and then we'll give our picks for the main matches on the UFC BJJ 2 card. So Cal, UFC BJJ, what do you think?
I think it's been, I don't know if underwhelming's the right word, because I don't know if there was that much hype for it in the first place, but they obviously had their own event before. Wasn't really a fan of the rule set, but they've just kind of copied CGI, haven't they, as far as rule set and the pit. So, guys, that's a good thing for them as far as it's a better rule set, because we saw that rule set work for CGI. Don't think Craig's the happiest about them blatantly taking it, but yeah. And then as far as, I think the biggest controversy with it is the whole exclusive contracts thing, which for the level of show they're putting on is really not worth it from the fans' perspective. I think the fans are the ones that are losing out. Seeing some of these athletes locked into these contracts and then not really seeing the best shows come out of that. Not really the best thing, and then obviously not the best thing, arguably, for the sport as well, which has been spoken about by Craig a lot.
I don't think the talent pool's big enough to do exclusive contracts. And then now we have Flow Grappling and CJI and ADCC kind of being cool with each other and all kind of happy to work together. And then we've had the outlier that is one with the Rutolos being there. And now we've got like another outlier with UFC BJJ. I know the Rutolos were able to, actually, I'm going to say one are kind of cool with other guys as well, because Tom DeBlas is heading up the Jiu-Jitsu at one, and he said he's fine with guys competing on CGI. So kind of like one are in with that bigger group of people who are happy with their athletes competing across promotions, even if they have athletes that compete mostly for their promotion. And now we have a kind of outlier in UFC. And yeah, I just don't think the sport's got a deep enough talent pool to do it. Pro wrestling's very different. There are enough guys for multiple companies and two big companies in the US, one bigger in WWE, but AEW has a really, really successful promotion. And then you have other promotions around the world like New Japan that are pretty big. But yeah, MMA, you've had UFC, and you have other promotions that are able to exist. One, PFL, whatever. But yeah, Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is just too small. What do you think?
Yeah, and I don't really know from the UFC's perspective, like what is the big advantage of having that exclusive contracts? Because then I might just encourage other organizations to also have exclusive contracts, and you're not going to get access to certain athletes. And yeah, it just seems like a bit controlling, and I don't really see who the winner is in that situation.
I just think it's the way that kind of the UFC do business, and the UFC and WWE under the TKO umbrella kind of do business. And I think they've just taken their existing business ideas into jiu-jitsu, but it's a different world, and it's much newer. The other thing is you have athletes that are committed to the gi as well, mostly, right? But they will come in and do no-gi matches. So they're going to want that ability to like come in, have a no-gi match, and then go back and do primarily gi events. So I just think that like they're going to really limit themselves in who they can attract.
Are they not allowed to do any tournaments? Like if Isaac Dorlein won that reality TV show, he couldn't go and do Worlds, or
Who knows? I don't know what their relationship. I mean, I think they probably have a good relationship with IBJJF in that they were using footage from IBJJF on their reality show. I think they actually said that Gordon was a IBJJF no-gi world champion, so as to not say that he was an ATCC champion. If memory serves me correct, I could be wrong there. I'm just going off memory. I'm getting old. But correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But anyway, I think they're going to limit themselves. And I think we can see that in this UFC BJJ 2 card. Because my big question is like, what's the point in these matches? Like, what are the storylines? What's the hype? Why are these guys facing each other? I don't really see the reason for the show happening. That all said, there's a couple of guys on the show that I like seeing compete, so I will tune in and watch because I'm a big grappling fan, but I don't think the likes of you and I are really going to provide the numbers necessary for this show to be a big success, you know? Right, let's look at the top couple of matches on the card, though, and just get some quick thoughts on it. I think the main event is going to be for the welterweight belt. Have you seen the belts?
Maybe, but they're not really coming to mind. Which
Right. They're not the most attractive looking.
yeah, that I feel like I've seen them, but I can't. They're not really sticking in my mind, which probably says a lot.
Andrew Tackett, welterweight champ against Hanato Kanuto. What do you think?
I mean, it's a good match. They obviously both move a lot, both athletic, explosive. I'm sure it'll be a fun match, but it's not the kind of matches that I'm interested in seeing from Andrew. That would be ones we've spoke about a bunch on the podcast, like rematches with the Rotolos, Mika, Levi, these kind of guys. Yeah, like it's a fun match. I'm sure it'll be enjoyable to watch, but it's not really from a storyline perspective and from like who's the best perspective. It's not the most exciting. I feel like Andrew is probably going to take it.
I think on recent form, I'm going with Andrew.
Yeah, that's where like Matt was obviously still at that level for sure, but he's obviously a bit older, focusing more on MMA now, whereas Andrew's on the come up and has shown a lot of good matches in the past.
And then we have Andrew's brother, William, facing Kyle Chambers. To be fair, William, he's tried to create some interest in the match. I think he said that Kyle has previously submitted both him and Andrew in matches. We're going back a good amount of time. I can't remember those matches off the top of my head. But Williams mentioned that. He's trying to create something around the match. I'm favouring William. What about you?
Yeah, is Kyle Chambers the one that had the final against Isaac on the
That lasted forever.
Yeah, that's the last time I can really remember seeing him, to be honest. I don't recall any other big matches or anything he's been in. So from that, I don't know if he'll be playing a super defensive game against William, because William's obviously going to be the big favourite in that match. Can't see William really losing unless, I'm sure Kyle's got some good leg lock attacks and stuff, unless he can pull something out from that. But more be interested to see if Kyle's coming in to win or to not get submitted. That'll probably be the biggest distinguishing factor in the match. But William's now the favourite for me in that.
And then for the light heavyweight title, we have Mason Fowler against David Garmo.
That's an interesting one. I think Mason's a big favourite in that. Again, I don't really know why they've came up with that match. I don't think they're necessarily in the same league, or even that David's like a league below him. And Mason's like one of the best guys in the world for sure, and David is like a good name, but a bit of a journeyman, if you can say, for that level anyway. He's obviously an amazing grappler, but yeah, like I don't see how he's getting a match for a title unless he's put together a few good wins on the UFC Jiu Jitsu name. I'm not really sure, but I don't think he has.
I think the reason he's getting the match, I think the reason for anyone being on this show is just these are the guys the UFC have been able to sign. And then they're going to try and make the match more interesting by having a title on it, or they're hoping that at least one of the guys on in the match has good name recognition. But I think this is what we're going to see. I don't think they're just going to scoop up all the top grapplers or enough top grapplers to make one guy face another guy, etc. So I think we are going to get matches like this. The only thing I'd say is, like, if there is one guy who's heavily favoured, that at least then sometimes we get jiu-jitsu matches that can be exciting and have finishes. Sometimes if top guys face each other, there's no guarantee of the match being super exciting, even although with the match having bigger names, more hype, more stakes, you can get more invested in it. So it doesn't have to be the most exciting match if it's two big names going against each other. I mean, like Philippe Pena against Gordon Ryan was edge of the seat stuff at the last ADCC, even though it wasn't the most exciting match across the whole time frame. It had that moment where you're like, Philippe's going to do that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think it's down to who UFC can sign, really.
I think there has to be a better way for everyone to be doing this and like collaborate. And I don't think it has to be a zero-sum game. I think some collaboration would be better for the fans and for the promoters. Like, I think we've
Well,
always, but and you go.
on that, you're getting collaboration now from everyone else. It seems to be that they've said, okay, but we'll all kind of be fine with each other.
Yeah. But like the idea that I just had there, we've spoken about having like a jiu-jitsu league quite a lot, like the getting grapplers to compete against each other. And it's like you could have something like you could have grapplers signed to UFC, grapplers signed to who's number one, grapplers signed to another one, and you can maybe have like every week those grapplers will have like in-house events, but then maybe once a month it's like SmackDown versus Raw, and then you've got like the guys from who's number one, and then there's more of a, you can collaborate and you can have your own signed guys that are going to compete for you 3 weeks out of the month, but then once out of the month you have your big pay-per-view show, and that's when they collaborate. You can maybe build some more stories. I just think there'd be better ways of doing it rather than just everyone locks up 20% of the grapplers when there's not really that many interesting matches anyway, and then you're just going to have a bunch of not very interesting matches on your show.
Yeah, I think what's happening is rather than everyone locking up 20% of the grapplers, is like one promotion looks like it's going to lock up like 5% of grapplers, or maybe like 10% of grapplers that we really want to see.
Yeah.
And then 90% of them are going to be fine interacting. Although, like, I think your point on the league format or these events, SmackDown versus Raw, as it were, and I think we get that with CJI and EDCC. The unfortunate thing is, like, CJI happens once a year, and then like 1 year they did the individual match tournament, and this year they're doing quintet style, and then next year, if it runs, it sounds like they're going back to individuals in a bracket. ADCC, the worlds are only every 2 years. Grapplers, the grappling world is different to MMA. Like, grapplers can compete a lot more often than MMA fighters who can maybe have 2 or 3 fights a year at the top level. I think a great thing about IBJJF is that you've got your majors and then an event like the Crown, and you can get guys in tournaments like multiple times a year, and then some of them jump into more regional competitions. I think no-gi grappling, the one thing is like, it's kind of like alongside this idea of like exclusive contracts is just this idea of super fights. And it just means that, like, I don't think the top grapplers face each other enough anyway, because they could compete a lot more often than they do. And in terms of like the physical requirements. And yeah, if you then have guys tied into promotions try to get specific matches for them, it's difficult. They're going to compete even less. I would just like to see some sort of structure, but if all these guys are working together, it's like, yeah, let's find a way that we can get guys out, like, maybe twice the amount that we see them right now,
Yeah, I just wonder if like the real difficult thing with all of this is just the fact that grappling is not is not that interesting to a lot of people, and like that's just going to be the cap on it. Even if you've got these big ideas for things, like always spoke about the cap of it's only really people that do grappling that will watch it, and then even it's a small percentage of the people that do it will watch the matches.
So I think rather than reaching out right now, grappling needs to reach within. I think it needs to do a much better job of trying to create excitement and hype and storylines and that to the people who do grappling, because you think about our gym, SBG Aberdeen, like how many guys get super excited about shows coming up and we'll chat about it in the gym and stuff like that. It's like a small group. Although in saying that, when the show is big enough, like a CJI, it's free on YouTube, like you get more people. I think like, and I'm not trying to big up this podcast or whatever, but I think we do a better job in trying to find interest in matches than some promotions do, you know? Like we try and come up with ideas as to like why we're interested in something outside of just like this guy has a certain type of game and that guy has a certain type of game. And like, you know, I'm a fan of a huge number of sports for all manner of reasons. And a lot of those sports have periods where not the most exciting things going on, right? But the overall narrative is super interesting and I need to stay with it. You know, I'm thinking of like snooker world championship or cricket, the Ashes, you know, like I get interested in those things and I want to watch them, and like grappling can fall into that. I think within snooker and cricket, like those who like the sport really like the sport and are very passionate about it. And I just think that like jiu-jitsu can do a better job at that. And so if any promotions need help with coming up with ideas for stuff, get in touch with Calum and me, and maybe we can help. But UFC BJJ 2, the card's on. Calum, I was interested to get your thoughts on the promotion as a whole, because I've not chatted to you about it. And we'll check out the show on UFC Fight Pass. Yeah, we'll give it a watch. But I think you can tell from Calum's reaction there that he's not the most enthused by it. So hopefully the matches deliver.